Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 341, The Harry Styles Affair. Hello, Big Chillians. Welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Sam and Eddie. Well, Eddie, I hate to do this to you, but ever since England have lost in the Euro final, I like to tease you about Italy's great success since that. They have now failed to automatically qualify for the World Cup and have dropped into the playoff. How does it make you feel seeing that England have cruised their way through the very commanding qualification, whereas Italy just seems to not be as good as they were in that one final?
Well, I think that's doing them a slight disservice. They were very good over the course of the Euros, so it's not as if they produced. They've dropped off a cliff certainly since then. Yeah, it doesn't bother me too much. It's a mild frustration of why couldn't this have happened. Started 3 days earlier, I guess. But at the same time, they're a good side. I expect that they'll qualify for the World Cup through the playoffs. There are some other good sides going into the playoffs in Europe, so there is a possibility that they get quite a tricky tie. But I'm going to assume that they'll qualify, and then I assume that they'll have a good World Cup. So, yeah, I think this is the aberration. It's not the Euros that was the aberration.
Yeah, my frustration has slightly waned at the fact that this is just one of those. It always happens with teams that like win World Cups, or well, usually anyway. When they win World Cups, they naturally have like a dip or a Euros or any sort of sport really. But they could face Portugal, right? That's my understanding. Is you could have Italy, Portugal for the World Cup playoffs, and one of them will naturally not qualify, which is quite strange from a European perspective not to have either. But then again, we've got used to the Dutch not being there until recently, until this one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think Portugal, it's more of a recent thing. You know, it's only the golden generation and then Ronaldo that have made us think of Portugal as being consistent, relevant figures on a European stage. But it's not as if you went back to the 90s and 80s that they would have been a team that would have already, sort of ever present in the knockout stages of major tournaments. So it is kind of I'm going to expect that when Ronaldo disappears, Portugal, although they have some very talented players there, I think they'll probably not quite reach the same levels that they have in recent years.
So the teams that have qualified so far are Belgium, Croatia, Denmark, England, Germany, France, Spain, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Serbia. Any surprises out of those, or any that you think are interesting that they've made it already?
I don't think any of those are shockers. Obviously, the surprising ones are Serbia, because they were in the group with Portugal and they only got through because of that Mitrovic last-minute goal. And then also Switzerland, just because they were in the group with Italy. They're surprising in those respects. They're not. I mean, both Serbia and Switzerland have qualified for their fair share. I mean, I feel like Switzerland are in almost every major tournament. So they seem like a normal team to be there. Serbia have been at a number of tournaments in recent years. So neither of those really stunned me. It's just that they came through groups that you maybe would have projected that they finished second in. I would have put them both in the playoffs had you asked me at the beginning of qualification where will they finish up. And I probably would have then said they'll make it through the playoffs.
And I think Sam already hinted towards the Netherlands being back, right? And that's the first time they've been back in, 3?
I think they've missed so they were at the recent Euros, but they missed the Euros and the World Cup before that, if I remember right.
Yeah. Sorry, not just World Cup. Yeah, Euros and World Cup.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. I mean, it's kind of weird because, you know, we really should be 6 months away from a World Cup, and instead it's coming at Christmas and that next year, winter. I don't want to make it centered around the Christian religion, particularly for a tournament that's taking place in the Middle East. But it is a bit strange that it still doesn't feel close. But I did find it interesting. I don't know if you saw I think this is the president of the Serbian Football Association, but I was unclear as to whether it was the president of Serbia or the president of their football association offered their players a million euro bonus if they qualified directly for the World Cup, which the players have then all offered to charities to help people in Serbia, which I think is the right thing for them to do. Not that Serbia is a desperately poor country, but it certainly isn't a wealthy one. And the prospect of footballers receiving million euro bonuses for qualifying for a World Cup when public funds could be used much, much better would have been a little bit of a weird one for me. But at least the players meant that and who knows, maybe there was a wink and a nod when the offer was made of, hey, even if you technically get this bonus, this is going towards a good cause that will make everyone involved look better. But it did seem a bit strange.
Yeah, the only other thing to take from it is kind of a semi hats off to the Scots, right? Because they started that group with one win in 4, I think, and then suddenly won almost every game past that. Look, not to say it had incredible opposition, right? But simultaneously, Austria they turn up at Euros. they're kind of usually there. They usually qualify. But yeah, it's pretty impressive from them to see them kind of go on that 5 or 6 game win streak in order to kind of turn up. So that was fairly impressive.
I like Scotland qualifying for major tournaments. The first World Cup that I can really, really, really remember is the 1998 World Cup. Scotland were there. Delamitri came out with "Don't Come Home Too Soon," which, even though I love a lot of the football songs associated with the England football team, I think "Don't Come Home Too Soon" is the best tournament-specific football anthem of all time. I think the just acceptance of failure that comes out in that song, which I think people misread even "Football's Coming Home." A large part of "Football's Coming Home," when interpreted correctly, is a recognition of consistent failure and the fact that it's kind of, despite the misery, there's still hope. And I think people sometimes take it as being just a lack of self-awareness and just a total ego trip. I think it's the opposite. But "Don't Come Home Too Soon" is just a total acceptance of the fact that the best case scenario is not abject failure, which I just think is wonderful as a song to celebrate going to a major tournament. First ever time I think Delamitri has had a reference on the podcast, which is surprising given the fact that Delamitri, one of the reasons Frank and I know each other.
Wait, what?
What?
Did you meet them?
Tim is insistent on the fact that Delamitri was playing when he and I first met. He has this thing where it's unchallengeable.
I thought it wasn't Delamitri. I thought it was.
Oh, it's Dispatch.
Dispatch.
Dispatch. It's Dispatch. But Delamitri also plays a role in that playlist. But it's always one of those things about Tim. You can't challenge someone who meets you, or it's a good power move for anyone out there listening. If you ever want to try and claim to have a really great memory, just go up to someone you've known for a while and then be like, "Do you know when we first met, song X was playing?" There's an almost 0% chance that they will have a strong opinion as to whether or not it was. And so it's undebatable, but you can just say like, no, I can clearly remember it and you have no recollection. So I must be right.
Another classic Tim move similar to that is to determine if you were at someone's place or not is to describe what their kitchen table looked like. Because you've got a 50% chance of saying it's either square or round. So even if you're lying, you've got a really good chance.
You're just like a TV psychic playing the odds there, as opposed to.
But in the same sense, though, like who would say that if they weren't, who would be like, "Oh, I was there because your kitchen table, it's round."
So to be clear, he wasn't saying what the kitchen table looked like, because that's actually fairly specific. He was just describing the shape. And in which case, you maybe have round, square, or rectangular as the only popular options. And if you chose anything other than that, and it was right, then I would believe you. Like if you said your kitchen table is triangular, and it is, that would automatically make me believe you'd been into someone's kitchen. Whereas just saying it's round, and then they say, well, yeah, but most of them are. But it'd be interesting. I mean, I just hope at one point he gets used as an eyewitness in a murder case or something. Because just the evidence that he will be using. What's your alibi? Well, I definitely wasn't there, officer, because I was actually I was at this unknown location during that period. Do you have any proof? Yeah. The walls, some of them are white.
The dishwasher's Samson. I'm wondering if he remembers these bits of information because he feels like this is a good moment and I need to have memories of it, or whether it's just completely subconsciously always happening.
Or he's just lying and making it up. That's what that's what I think. Because if you pick something so obscure as a kitchen table, people would say, like, why would he say that?
No. I just need to. Sam, again, optimistic in the way you interpret things. Tim is sitting there going, wow, this is a really great
This is a special moment in my life.
I need to take this one in. I need to remember this. The kitchen table's round. Don't forget that, Tim.
You can imagine these Rain Man moments where he's just looking around. 43-inch TV. Hitachi.
Time to take a mental picture.
Yeah, I have to create my memory palace right here, right now. But no, going back to the Italians, it doesn't bother me too much. But I will forever be left with the thought that England should have won that tournament, not in the sense that they deserve to win the final itself, but that it was a missed opportunity against teams that they should have beaten, and that they were the better team in terms of talent and ability on going into every match that they played. I'm not saying, again, Italy were the better team on the day of the final and deserved to win the final, but England have a better side overall. I did we discussed Harry Kane at length in the last episode. So much discussion this week in the sort of sports talk, radio, footballing coverage world has been dedicated to the Rooney versus Kane debate for reasons I don't totally understand. I mean, I know that Kane is closing in on the all-time goal scorer record and will break it with ease and set a record that is far, far higher than what Rooney's is. But it's still surprising. I don't know why these goals against subpar opposition, the sort of back-to-back hat-tricks, triggered this larger debate about who's better, Kane or Rooney. I mean, my opinion is Wayne Rooney was the much better player, but never quite fulfilled his potential, even if his career was tremendously successful.
Wait, I don't understand then. Are you saying Wayne Rooney was like the more talented player but didn't live up to it?
I think Wayne Rooney had the talent level necessary to be one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world. And for a very short period in his career, that's where he was. But he never managed to really develop from I don't think he didn't become a much better player from the age of, say, 22 to 28. Whereas a lot of players, if you compare him with, say, Ronaldo, his progression over a similar period of time was astronomical. Whereas Rooney got better, but not by as much as you would have thought he could have done. And I think Rooney's underrated now, because I think people remember the tail end of his career when he was just this sort of weird holding midfielder at times and jack of all trades, kind of master of none for that United and England team. And I think people forget how good he was in the 2000s. But I think he's both a better player than Harry Kane, or was a better player than Harry Kane is, but at the same time didn't reach the levels he could have reached.
Yeah, I think with Rooney as well, he was just part of England teams that were just perennial failures in a way as well. So he didn't have as many opportunities to do it at the kind of competitive stage outside of qualifiers. So at a World Cup and Euros, I think one of them, he was suspended for one of the opening games of the group stage, to which England didn't progress. So he only had 2 opportunities. He just hasn't. It just didn't feel like he did it on the main stage. And to be honest, I think that's out of injury or suspension. But I think with Kane, it's also just kind of close to mind as well. like we're seeing Kane do it now, so you immediately almost forget about Rooney rather than kind of remember what you were living through with Rooney?
I think it's also a larger debate. I think it's one that will never be settled in the footballing world of, would you rather have a player who you can watch and say he's definitely way better than him, but then the other player scores more goals, and the fundamental goal of the sport, right, is to score. And there are players where they are passengers other than their goal scoring ability, then it's an issue. And you see plenty of them. Whereas they've either scored or they've done nothing. And if anything, they have hurt you in games, even when they are scoring, because all they are there to do is potentially take a chance. Harry Kane is a better footballer than that. But it is that if he ends up, he could score 100 goals for England. And if he scores 100 goals for England, it's then weird to turn around and say, but Wayne Rooney, whose fundamental sort of purpose within the England team was to score goals, scored a fraction of what Kane may end up on, but was a better player. If you see what I mean, it becomes a weird discussion of, yes, the results tell us that one of them was definitely better at doing what they're doing, but the other one was.
What about major trophies? We talked about last week or last episode about that the amount of trophies or championships you win obviously defines your success. Now, Wayne Rooney has many of those, and Harry Kane has none of those.
Yeah, Kane has none. Wayne Rooney won on a club level, won everything. International level, Harry Kane's been more successful. So again, I guess from an England perspective, you'd say that Harry Kane has already had a better England career than Wayne Rooney did, because Kane's played in a major final and a major semifinal, and Rooney did neither of those things. So I guess from an international career perspective, Kane is already on top, even if he never plays another game. But yeah, as an overall career, I mean, Rooney won a Champions League, multiple Premier League titles, multiple FA Cups, League Cups, Community Shields, everything you could hope to win as an individual player, and lost Champions League finals. So it's not as if he only won it the one time he got there. I guess the thing is, part of the issue for Rooney is there weren't large periods of time where it felt like it was Rooney's team. And I think that's part of the thing that kind of taints his legacy a little bit, is I don't really think of necessarily, like when I think of United winning the Champions League, he was obviously a fundamental part in that, but I don't think of it as like Rooney's United won the Champions League. And when you are getting in the discussions for being a sort of all-time great or a truly, truly world-class player, if you aren't the player that you think of when you think of the teams that you were on, I think that hurts you a little bit. It's, you had this a little bit with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, with Scottie Pippen, who's currently on a campaign to try and just tarnish Michael Jordan every step he takes, which I know just because he's trying to sell a book for the most part, but he also seems genuinely pretty bitter. But obviously Michael Jordan was a better basketball player than Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen was a fantastic basketball player, but also the other thing is that was Michael Jordan's team. They may have won the same number of championships, but there's no doubt that the key person within those was Michael Jordan and not Scottie Pippen.
I guess it just depends where you want to put the emphasis on what defines a good player. Like, is it the lethalness in front of goal? Is it the contributions they make up front? Is it the hold-up play? It really depends what you want to do, right? Because you even had some midfielders that maybe scored on average better goals per game than strikers. So I think David Platt's a good example, right, where he had like 50 odd caps and scored like 27 goals. So do you say that David Platt is one of the greatest England midfielders? You probably wouldn't, but still had a very good contribution.
I don't think David Platt would.
No, but that's what I mean. Is like, if you're just talking outright goals per game, yes, you're not going to put David Platt there, but from midfield, that's pretty incredible in that respect. But I think I guess Sam, I agree.
The question then, Sam, would be, if you had to start a team and you had to choose your first player, is it Wayne Rooney or is it Harry Kane?
I think this England team, the way the rhetoric is discussed, it is Harry Kane leading the line of a talented England team. And all of these players around him are very versatile. So like Sancho can play anywhere, Sterling can play anywhere, Foden can, they can really play any sort of formation.
Sancho mostly just doesn't play.
Well, the key point there, they've got to contribute at the moment. Okay.
Sancho and I are playing about as much football as each other at the moment.
But Kane doesn't move in that. Right, he'll maybe come off 60 minutes in. Rashford will come on, for example, or something. But Kane is the anchor in a very talented team. And I agree with Eddie that it never felt like Rooney's England, but this, in my opinion, is Kane's England. So I think Kane might actually be the default starter in like a team.
Yeah, I think this is Kane's England team. I think he's the first player. If you asked me if 10 years from now, you say name an England footballer who played, like the first England footballer who comes to mind who played between the years of 2016 and 2022, I think Harry Kane is the one I would name. Whereas I think if you ask me over the period of Wayne Rooney's career, so let's say 2002 to 2016, it's a little unfair because that's multiple generations sneaking in. But even if you split that up, so even if you do 2002 to 2010, I don't think of him. And then if you do sort of 2010 to 2016, I still don't think he might 2010 to 2016, he might just be the first I think of. But I still would probably be, say, Steven Gerrard or someone, even though Gerrard retired before Rooney did.
You would owe yourself to the kind of Gerrard Lampard argument of how you place him in midfield for that. I think the 2006 World Cup was kind of the epitome of that argument as well. And almost everything else didn't matter. It was a case of how you get like arguably two of the best midfielders to play with each other. Like that was the overarching debate of it. Like who's the better midfielder for attacking or defensive duties? I wouldn't have thought about Wayne Rooney in that respect.
Eddie, you don't have a soundbite for when Sam says playing with each other?
No, not yet. But yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, it's the same. Like if we take players from the 80s and 90s, Gary Lineker scored more goals for England than Alan Shearer did, but I have no doubt about the fact that Alan Shearer was a better footballer than Gary Lineker is. And similarly, if we did a draft and we can take either one of them in their prime, I take Alan Shearer every time over Gary Lineker. But then Gary Lineker scored more goals for England.
What about Peter Crouch? Like 20-odd goals, 40-odd appearances, a couple of hat-tricks against Jamaica and people of the sorts. Didn't really achieve it at club level, but seemingly the international level defines him more than the club, maybe?
Peter Crouch falls into that weird category where he is more of a cultural icon than he is a footballer. And I mean that he was a good footballer. Obviously, far be it from me to try and say that he wasn't good at what he did, and you don't score 100 Premier League goals because you can't play football. But at the same time, his lasting legacy is because he's kind of weird looking and he's quite charming.
I mean, no, you're right. It's the robot thing. So it's the robot celebration. It's the height. It's him saying surprisingly good with his feet, or someone saying surprisingly good with his feet. And the quote about what would you be doing if you're not a footballer? And he said, I'd be a virgin.
Which I saw Harry Styles stole.
Really?
Yeah, I saw an interview. I was watching again on a YouTube rabbit hole I was going down. And sometimes I watch those dumb compilations just because they'll be suggested for me, where it's like 10 minutes of videos that live in my head rent free, or like 10 minutes of videos I watch when I can't fall asleep at 3 a.m. And those usually are when I'm watching them. And one of them was Harry Styles was asked the same question that Peter Crouch. So Frank, if you're not familiar, Peter Crouch was once asked when he was early on in his career, what would you be if you hadn't been a footballer? And he said, a virgin. Now, in the case of Peter Crouch, that is a very believable answer to that question. He also married a famous and successful and, by most people's standards, attractive woman. So it feels like he punched up as to where he would have probably landed had he not been a footballer. Whereas Harry Styles got asked exactly the same question, what would you have been had you not been a singer or a musician? And he said a virgin. The crowd obviously thought this was a hilarious answer. Harry Styles,
Oh, here comes a revelation by Eddie. Here it comes.
No, but I mean, Harry Styles is an attractive man. So he's not only sleeping with women because he's famous. He would have still been able to do that even if he'd been a nobody.
Oh, I thought you were going to say not only is he sleeping with women, he's also sleeping with me. I thought that's what you were going to say there.
Oh, you thought that's how
Wait,
big
that's the next step with Eddie.
You thought that's how big the revelation was going to be.
Yeah.
That I had just been sitting on the fact that I had been secretly having an affair.
You've been
with
sitting
one
on
of the
Harry
world's-
Styles, yes.
150 episodes of trying to bring it out, and you just got this one moment.
I could have made us go viral from day one. And instead, I just been like, you know what? Right time, right place for this one. At some moment in time, I'm just going to drop. Hey guys, I've been fucking Harry Styles, by the way.
Do you have a Harry Styles song queued up?
No, sadly not. Maybe that will be. Maybe Harry Styles will make it into the future sound bites. But I can't think of a One Direction or a Harry Styles song that would be suitable.
No. I can only think of Watermelon Sugar. That's all I can think of.
That doesn't.
It doesn't really work.
I'll think about it and try and come up with something. And I guess going on to a slightly more depressing topic, the other big news in the world of sport this week, certainly in the UK, has been the racism scandal. I kind of hate framing it that way, but that's hit cricket based on former Yorkshire cricketer Azim Rafiq speaking about the systemic racism that he experienced during his time playing for the county. Just the fact that, and it's a scandal that has then had an impact on the England team, because there are stories that came out relating to the behavior of several members of the England team at different periods in time, the most notable of which was Gary Balance, who was a Yorkshire player, who would use the term Kevin to refer to all people of color in a sort of disparaging way, and that he then became close friends with Alex Hales, who then got a dog, which is a mostly black dog, and then named his dog Kevin. Now, Alex Hales has obviously already had a controversial career. He missed out on the 2019 England World Cup win because he tested positive for cocaine, and then he has never been brought back in for selection. England have received some criticism over time for not bringing Alex Hales back into the England squad because his performances since then, I mean, he's one of the best batsmen in the world in the shorter form of the game. And when you look at, for example, in this T20 World Cup, after when they lost Jason Roy to injury, Alex Hales would have been the natural replacement to come in as an opener. And Morgan and the England team have received some criticism over the past 2 years for not bringing him back into the fold. Now, whether or not they were lucky in not doing that, or if they were aware of maybe some of the less likable aspects of his character and so decided that it wasn't worth it, either way, it's a very good result for this England team, but a very sad state of affairs for the game of cricket to see the level of racism still present. And he speaks very openly about being sort of racial slurs that are used from people from the subcontinent. Obviously, he's particularly addressed at people from Pakistan being openly used in the changing rooms. I mean, it's just really awful when he spoke about it.
Yeah, it's awful, but also it's just how it's kind of, you realize how much more systemic it is than just a single county cricket club, right? So it came out that the thing that frustrates me the most is when people kind of try to diminish abuse and call it banter, the kind of racial abuse, and they say no, it was banter. That's an awful thing. But how it's come out that the Yorkshire board, the county cricket board, semi covered it up by not releasing reports, didn't really want to talk about it, constantly kind of pushed it under the rug, so to speak. But then as a result of this, kind of like lighting this ember of sorts under it, they then there's comments against Michael Vaughan in terms of England's captaincy at the time, making racial comments. It's now come to transpire that other British Asians have come out and said that they received similar things, or they felt that the ECB, so the English Cricket Board, didn't offer any sort of help or protection or feel that sense of inclusiveness towards it, and so much so now that the UK government's now involved to say that they're not ruling out what they call like a nuclear option of creating an independent regulator. So it's always such a shame when what you would always hope to be an isolated case turns out to be something way more systemic and way more kind of institutionalized. And obviously it's good to see, even though it's forced, people resign, like the Yorkshire board, and people resigning as a result of it. But it's just kind of an awful state of affairs just to see it snowball the way it has, because I don't know. I always like to think of cricket as something that's very easy to be inclusive in terms of a sport, just due to the kind of historical links with kind of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all of those places.
Well, it's one of the most diverse sports in terms of the professional representation. It is at a very elite level, just because of where the sport is played. There aren't many sports where you could see such a range. You could see the same number of elite players from the subcontinent as you see from the West Indies, as you see from South Africa, as you see from England or Australia. So you're right in that respect. It is just because of its origins or how the sport has developed, it is a much more diverse sport than you necessarily would see in, say, tennis or golf.
Do you think it's kind of tarnished your opinion of cricket? Because you've always had this perception of cricket being this, not gentleman's game, but the idea of like everything is above board. I know sledging exists, but the idea that it's very sportsmanlike and people are very respectful of the other team. We've always spoken about it with New Zealand, for example, being those kind of like nice guys of it. Do you think now you feel like there's a bit of a like a kind of underbelly to it that maybe is a bit worse than what we see?
No. And that's not because I think highly of cricket. It's just because I don't think that highly of society or people as a whole. It doesn't surprise me that there's elements of racism in pretty much every aspect of what we do. And particularly a little bit like you touched on, once you get into a situation where things can be dismissed as being banter or locker room talk, it's very easy for, and this is where I think people have to be careful. There are genuine examples of that. And I know, for example, Matthew Hoggard, and this is not to in any way say that he is then not guilty of doing something wrong, but Matthew Hoggard immediately reached out and said he didn't realize what he was saying, and that he hoped that it hadn't done any long-term damage. I think there are people who can get caught up in a certain culture and say things that they don't necessarily mean, and certainly not realize the significance of them. That doesn't make it right, but I do think there are examples of that. That's very different. This has exposed people who had strong beliefs and were standing by what they were saying. I mean, when he is talking about being told, having the captain of his team come up and tell people not to speak to him because he's just a dirty P word and that he smells and all sorts of things. That's not just locker room banter. That's not just throwing across a few insults because we're all going to insult each other, and deep down we know it doesn't matter. And I do fear sometimes that there can be a snowball effect for things like this, and people who did just say things not correctly, but not in that way, get caught up, and the sort of people doing the real harm, in a sense, almost end up getting overlooked because there are going to be higher profile names who someone will have said something bad. I mean, even today, Azim Rafiq has had to come out and apologize because a screenshot of him saying something inappropriate about Jewish people came out. And look, we've all got skeletons in our closets, and we've all got things that we would not want, that we've said that we don't want going public. And this should in no way undermine what he's experienced. But I think that's the only thing I become wary of at times. It's just this fear that, and it's so difficult to express that properly because I think I can understand someone listening to what I'm saying and telling me that I'm defending this sort of indefensible, or that, you're kind of going into those weird, strange fears of witch hunts and cancel culture and the kind of Aaron Rodgers argument. And I'm not saying that, but sometimes you do have to look at things in the kind of cold light of day and objectively, and try and determine when did someone have intention behind what they said and when they didn't, when did they not. and it doesn't justify the lack of intention. It's still bad, but it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of intent or malice versus education, right? Like you say, the Hogard scenario is like, I didn't realize what I was saying. I apologize unreservedly, and it's something I need to improve on as a person. Whereas obviously there's malice when you say what you say about don't go near someone because they smell, based on some sort of profiling, is of course unacceptable. I think Nasser Hussain, who's kind of Indian born himself, came out and said that the hope is from this, even though it's kind of like airing a lot of dirty laundry in that respect, that this will lead to a brighter, kind of more inclusive game in terms of like a lot of things will be found out, a lot of things will be identified, there'll be greater scrutiny, greater education, greater diversity and inclusiveness programs. And, if this is a tragic spark that kind of ignites a more inclusive cricket, then let's do it. Kind of like you kind of need to embrace this moment, even though it's born of kind of a sadness of sorts, to try and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to take these really bad events sometimes to push the ball forward a bit further, but no, it's obviously not a great look for cricket.
Push the boundary.
And not exactly, yeah. I also like that you referred to Nasser Hussain as your exact words were there, who's kind of Indian.
No, I said who I think. Okay. Oh crap! Do I have to apologize now? Who I think is Indian born, as opposed to kind of.
But no, and also just have to commend Azim Rafiq for sitting there and speaking so openly about it, because it cannot be easy to know that what you're saying is going to be scrutinized, that people are going to deny them. People are going to say they just don't remember it, which I think is the worst defense. I think I almost, and this is this is a discussion that we had, Sam, you and I had, because of circumstances that happened in my personal life, but where I kind of came back across I don't think we discussed this on the podcast, but my childhood bully, in a weird way, just because the world is small. So someone I know slept with him, and it led to a discussion about
Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Is this all
Harry
full
Styles
circle?
Big chill exclusive.
Harry Styles cheated on me with my childhood bully. It was very upsetting. But Taylor Swift's going to write a song about it, so it'll be okay. And I remember once confronting him. When I say confronting him, I didn't want anything from it. I just said, hey, and then we kind of reintroduced ourselves. And then I said, I know who you are. You bullied me when we were 12 years old. And then he said he didn't remember it. And I think the saying you don't remember it is far more insulting than anything. I would have preferred him denying it. But no, this was so inconsequential. I know I made your life misery for a while, but it's just another day in my life that means nothing to me.
And then it gave you a Charlie horse. Yeah, gave you a swirly.
But on to lighter topics, I don't know if you saw that the Manning cast curse was semi-broken this week after Draymond Green made an appearance on Monday Night Football, and then the Golden State Warriors won their next game I'll at least give it some credibility in the sense that they beat the Brooklyn Nets, so it was a big game. I still think that the Manning cast curse specifically applies to NFL players, so we've yet to see that broken. But it was at least, and that the Eli and Peyton Manning addressed it on the cast itself.
I liked Mickelson's response, because Phil Mickelson was also on.
Yeah,
and he said he was taking it extremely seriously and had opted not to play the following week for fear that something might happen to his game. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, they tried to use Mickelson to debunk it, essentially, and all he did was just come out and say, like, no, it is a thing, and that's why I'm not playing next week. That must have been pretty bad for them to hear.
I did like we got a closer look at Eli's setup, though, because he's recording all of these from his golf simulator within his house. So, which he had the game playing on the projection screen that his golf simulator was on, but then also for a while took a couple of swings that Phil Mickelson then analyzed and described as being cute. But nice setup. I would love to be able to sit down and watch the NFL on Sunday with my multiple screens plus my golf simulator, where I could either have a few swings or just put up a, whatever it is, 100, 200-inch projection of the game.
Just go public with the Harry Styles stuff then. You get all your money.
Harry can get that for you.
Yeah, you can call it hush money. You can send him a message like, I'm going to go to the media with this story.
Yeah, he's not my sugar daddy yet.
So before we get to our NFL picks for the week, I guess we're now deep enough into the season where we have a decent idea of what teams are and who we think they are. So I wanted to just get your
hold on. You can't cue me up for a soundbite drop and then quickly move on.
But they are who we thought they were.
Okay, thank you.
Beautifully timed.
Smooth. I can fix that in editing.
Okay.
That can all be made looking. But I will say one thing: do we know who they are? I genuinely don't know if I know who these NFL teams are.
That was actually going to be what I was going to say. Is do we actually have a good idea? And with that in mind, who would you pick right now if someone asked you who will win the Super Bowl? No odds, no nothing. Just who's going to win the Super Bowl? What's your answer?
So the only thing we know is the 10 weeks of football that we've seen, basically.
What? No, I mean, you know what? I don't.
I don't know. I don't even know what this question is.
This is not like in a box. I'm just saying not based off of odds or betting wise. Like not what's the best pick. Just who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
But Frank, are you saying we have to base this information solely off the information that we know?
No, it can be off of information you don't know.
No, I just kind of thinking about. But I mean, that was a real Donald Rumsfeld moment from you there, Sam, where it could have ended up sounding insightful with known unknowns, but in the end, you've just asked us, just the known knowns. We're going to deal with just the known knowns here. I guess I'll answer. It's tough because every team I'm starting to think of and put that argument forward, I can immediately pick a major hole in them.
Now let's revisit. Who did you pick at the start of the season when we did our preview? You picked the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, I picked the Chiefs to play the Niners in the Super Bowl.
Do you still believe the Chiefs are the most likely winner of the Super Bowl?
No, but they're not far away from convincing me that they might be.
Yeah, the Cowboys game's an interesting one.
Like literally, if you ask me the same question this time next week, I might say, yeah, it looks like the Chiefs are coming into form at just the right time. But I don't know. I'm going to say the Packers in the sense that they have the strongest CV over the course of the season, but I think good teams will beat them. But they've kind of done everything right so far, barring week 1 and barring the Rodgers-less performance against the Chiefs, when even then they didn't lose to the Chiefs that badly. So I also think you then have to factor in the Packers with home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which they have a realistic chance of happening. And then they play snow games, which I know you love, Frank, but that's legitimate home field advantage, right? Until they get to the Super Bowl, that's a major plus for them.
Yeah. So my pick originally was Chiefs-Rams. I am going to say right now, my best feeling of who will win, I think, is the Bills. Partly because of what you were saying with the home field advantage, because right now they are on pace to have the home field advantage. That's another tough place to play in January in Buffalo. And in terms of completeness, yes, they lost to the Jags, but overall their defense looks extremely strong. And when their offense has looked good, it's looked very, very good. So I think when you combine a defense that's looked good all year with an offense that 80% of the time is clicking, I think for me, that would be the strongest pick I could have right now to be a Super Bowl winner.
Does the Bills defense really look that good?
I think so.
I know shutting out any NFL team is impressive, but when you really look back at the teams that they've played, their schedule has been so easy that it's like, oh wow, what a performance. They limited the Dolphins to only a handful of points, or they, even against the Jags, they stopped them from having points, scoring a lot of points, or the good performance from the Bills against the Jets. Like, because that division has turned into so top heavy, where it's the Patriots and the Bills and the other two are pretty much garbage, and the rest of the teams, they've yet to play the Patriots, so they've had the easiest combination of games from within their division. I don't know what's the best offense that their defense has stood up against and put in a good performance.
They decimated the Chiefs.
They played them at the time when the Chiefs were in that kind of mood to be beaten.
Let's throw the Chiefs out. Give us because that's a whole other debate. Give it the second best then.
Probably the second best team they've played is the Titans, and they lost that game.
Yeah, they conceded 34, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's their best defensive performance minus the Chiefs?
That's tough because now you're saying not good teams. They shut out the Texans.
No, but if we're saying their defense is good, what's their next best?
Honestly, it was probably thinking about it when they shut out the Dolphins early on, because the Dolphins were okay at the start of the season, right? They played like the first 2 or 3 games and actually played like competent football. I'd probably say it's the 35-0 shutout, like early on in the season, just because that was when the Dolphins were playing anything competent. But no,
and then held them to 11 the second time after that.
Yeah, but that's when they were incompetent. I don't know. I think I take Eddie's point that when you actually look at their kind of points conceded against teams that are going to be around them, it's high. When you look at the teams they've played, it's extremely generous.
And look, you can only beat the team in front of you, and shutting out a team or limiting any NFL team to under 10 points is good, right? Like, it's very easy to be so dismissive of bad teams, but bad teams score a handful of points against most teams. So, like, there's a big difference between beating a team 34-14 and beating a team 34-6. Even though it's one score, it's a real difference in terms of what happened in that game. So I'm not saying that they don't have a good defense. I just think it's very easy to kind of look at the raw numbers and then leap to the conclusion that they must have an elite defense. And I'm just not sure.
And you alluded to better understanding the Chiefs after they play the Cowboys. The same can be said, I think, for the Bills coming up soon, because they have the Colts, the Saints, the Patriots, the Bucks, the Panthers, the Patriots. Those are all legitimately decent playoff contending teams right there. So a lot will be found out maybe about the Bills, or they could have a great performance followed by, a stinker followed by another great one, like we were happening to see for every team in the NFL this year. It's been tough.
Yeah, I think every time we felt about a team, hey, these next 2 games are going to tell us what they're really like, the team either then tells us something and then immediately goes back on it. Like the Rams, you kind of got to the point where you felt like the Rams had proven themselves with the win against the Bucks and some of their other performances, and then
2 in a row.
Their last 2 offensive performances have been so bad. And it's not just that they're lost. It's like the offense. I always thought if they're going to lose, they're going to lose shootouts. And then they're being near on shutout. So it's such a transformation that then you don't know what the team is. And I think that's always the big struggle with some of these. There's so many NFL teams where I don't know. The only team in a sense that I guess I can really, really trust when they're healthy is the Cardinals. That you can at least know the Cardinals have an explosive offense and they will deliver when they're fully healthy. But then I don't know if they're ever going to be fully healthy again. And I definitely couldn't say now that I'm going to trust that they're going to be fully healthy in the first week of February.
So, Sam, what would be your answer?
I'd almost want to say the Bills, just because a lot of the stuff you said, like when that offense is going, they are very good and they will just outscore anyone. But I think I picked the Chiefs, and I actually said there could be a repeat of the Chiefs-Bucks kind of Super Bowl again. But from what I see, I like the Titans. I just like the fact that they're beating the teams that they would need to beat, and they've done it over the past couple without the kind of idea. We always said, like, can they do it without Henry? They can. Play action seems to still be working well because people fear the run game, even if Henry's not playing. So that plays into Tannehill well. They've got an easier set of games coming up. Like the Patriots isn't easy in a couple of weeks, but I'd probably pick the Titans. I think they can outscore, and they can just keep going with the best teams. And that's the important thing at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I don't dislike that pick. I mean, I think they're up there for me. So I then want to follow this question up with, when you factor in the odds, what's the best bet to win the Super Bowl? So I'll run you through the top 9, probably 6 or 7. Bills are favored at 6-1. Bucks are 13-2. Chiefs are 8-1. Packers are 17-2. Titans 9-1. Rams 9-1. Cards 10-1. Cowboys 10-1. Ravens 14-1, and Patriots 18-1. And after that, the next team would be Chargers at 30-1. So a sharp drop off.
Factoring in odds, I'm going to go to 2 teams you haven't even mentioned, because I think that almost every team that makes the playoffs is going to have a realistic chance of winning.
So you want me to keep going?
It's one of those years. No, we don't have to run through the list. I'm looking at the list and I know where I'm going.
No, the 49ers at 80-1 is a terrible bet.
I'm going to take the Vikings and the 49ers at 80-1. And I'm saying I got a chance with one of those with 3 games left in the NFL season.
The Vikings at 80-1 is interesting, though. Because you didn't say the Patriots, but whereabouts are they in the betting?
18-1.
Did he? He did say the Patriots.
Yeah, I did. But
yeah, last team.
Yeah, there's no value there.
Man, these brain scans when we.
Hey, it's a lot of teams, a lot of numbers. Got to focus. I don't know, actually. Now you've said the Vikings 80-1, it's kind of an interesting punt. But I'd probably just stick with where I am, right? The fact that the Titans are 5th, 6th favorites, and I think that they're kind of up there to do it at 9-1.
9-1, they are.
Good value. Yeah, I think
your Bengals are 50-1. Just FYI.
Can I give my legitimate answer would be the Ravens at 14-1.
See, now I thought that was interesting as well.
I think
they're really starting to worry me.
Like, they worry me, but they still, I think at least with the Ravens, if on their day they're as good as anyone, and that offense can just be near on unstoppable. Obviously, they were on my undoing in my Survivor, so it would add an extra layer of irony if they now never lose again and just run the table and go right through the Super Bowl. That will make it that slightly bit more painful as well. But I think 14-1 is too big of a price. So I think if we're looking at value, I can't trust any of the teams in single figures. I don't think that's really I don't see value in any of them. I think the 14-1 on the Ravens is when I first start to see it. And I do genuinely mean that the Vikings and Niners at 80-1. Put it this way, if they make the playoffs, they're not 80-1. So when you're seeing teams that are bigger than that at that price you think might make it into the playoffs and could win a playoff game, then 80-1 is too big.
I kind of like the Cards at 10-1. Here's a team I think who 3 weeks ago were probably 2nd favorites to win, and they've now dropped into 7th favorites just because Murray's been slightly hurt. So I understand always the worry is that he's going to be hurt and he might not come back full strength, but they now have the luxury a little bit to slow down that process and make sure he's coming back healthy instead of rushing him. So I think that's a benefit. And when they are a healthy team, I think they're the best team in the NFL. So if they can get back to that healthy level, then, being the 10th favorite is a steal.
Yes and no. The reason I'll disagree with you pretty strongly is that throughout the season, whenever we've analyzed the Cardinals and their Super Bowl chances, we've always said, yeah, they're really good, but the worry is, will they be healthy? And I can't then do the reverse theory of, hey, they're not healthy now, but just imagine if they are healthy. If you see what I mean, like the thing we thought would happen, which was that Murray will get injured and they also at the risk of obviously losing some of their other superstars. But primarily the concern is Murray. It has come to pass, and I can't then suddenly do some mental gymnastics and decide, hey, I know I thought Murray would get injured. Now he is injured, but just imagine if
But he's getting his
healthy in the
injuries out of the way
playoffs.
now.
Because or he'll never be healthy again over the course of the season, which is kind of what we saw last year. If you told me they're going to wrap him up in cotton wool and we're not going to see Murray
He's not
again
a mummy.
until week 1 of the playoffs, then maybe
Cotton wool.
you'll put mummies in cotton wool.
How long would that take?
Well, more importantly, how long would it last? I think that would be the real concern from the mummification process. Oh, it's just disintegrated like a normal body. This isn't good. But I mean, that's the issue. And look, you can kind of apply. I think always the thing with when you're like, oh, but will they be healthy? You can apply that same logic, because if I can remove the quarterback from any of these teams, I'm eliminating all of their chances. So it's not like, oh, well, I'll take Tampa Bay even if Tom Brady's not playing. It doesn't. So it's a little unfair to the Cardinals. But the issue is Murray looks like with the way he plays, he looks like he always could get hurt, and he does get hurt.
I guess with that in mind, should we go on to our picks for kind of next week or starting tonight?
Yeah. And last week, not one of our best. So money line, Sam, well, we all did pretty similarly. Sam was the best. He went 9-4-1. We obviously had the tie with the Steelers Lions game. And then Frank, you and I both went 7-6-1. Against the spread, Sam, you and I both went 7-7. And Frank, your slide continues. You went 5-9.
I knew I had a bad week. You didn't have to tell me.
So, our season totals then. Sam, you have caught me in the money line race. So we are now both 96-53-1. Frank, you aren't far behind. You're 92-57-1. And then against the spread, you're still in the lead, Frank. You're 81-65-1, which is a great season. But obviously, it's a little bit of a fall from where you were before. Sam is catching you. He's only 4 games behind now. He's 77-62-1. 77-61-1, sorry. And I am 75-74-1. So I'm kind of keeping my head just above the 500 water.
If I remember right, Frank, that's your second 5-9 in a row.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 2 tough weeks for betting overall.
Not for me.
Sam, I had one question for you before we wrap up. Did you see the new Spider-Man trailer?
Not yet.
Ooh.
No. I haven't even seen spoilers. I haven't even seen spoilers about it, so I'm pretty impressed with that. Yeah, I look forward to seeing it, actually.
And actually, Eddie, I had one for you. You said that you were watching a lot of television because you were sick. Did you watch the new Netflix movie that apparently broke streaming?
Red Notice?
Red Notice? It's
no,
Gal Gadot,
the Ryan Reynolds,
Ryan Reynolds, and The Rock.
No, I've had enough Ryan Reynolds in my life. I know what if there's a
wait, is this a
I know who I thought
Big Chill exclusive?
Yes, yeah, I had a threesome with Harry Styles and Ryan Reynolds, and Harry did enough, but Ryan, all looks, no substance. But no, Ryan Reynolds, he is Ryan Reynolds and everything, and I find him quite charming in a way, his real life persona, when him talking, like when you see him at Wrexham and stuff, that's been fine, but you can just copy and paste all of his performances from one to the other, and I just don't need it anymore. I don't need the sarcastic cultural reference jokes constantly. I'm all right.
Yeah, he'd be a good guest, though. We should get him on to talk about Wrexham.
I'll say this now: there's no fucking way Ryan Reynolds is ever coming on this podcast.
Do you mean out of the fact that he just wouldn't anyway, or you're full on vetoing it?
Well, it's 99%. There's no way he would. And then
if that 1% he does, and he's going to say, "Yeah, never mind, we got someone else."
Such a power play. Such a power play.
You know what? I'll invite him on. We just won't record it. We'll just have a conversation. And then...
Oh shit! Sorry, Ryan.
I forgot to hit record. Sorry.
And we'll use Skype as well.
Oh, we could do that one in person. I'll tell you, when we start pulling in people as significant as Ryan Reynolds, these will be in person. Something's got to give at that point. So
he can fly to us,
to all of us.
Wow, just split into 3 personalities.
Yeah, he flies, has a short conversation, 15 minutes with Frank, 15 minutes with Sam. Yeah, no, I did not. I did watch the new movie on Apple, the new Tom Hanks movie on Apple TV. Finch.
Why are you so into these Tom Hanks movies?
I don't know. Just had to give it a go. It was better than Greyhound or whatever that movie was called. It was better.
Is it like Sam said, though, where it's just him instead of Wilson the soccer ball, it's him with a robot?
It's not far off. It's not far off. It's not terrible. I would put it in the category of watchable. If you're having a weekend and you kind of got nothing to do and you want something that just kind of exists and you'll go through the story and it doesn't challenge you intellectually in any way, and it's sort of sad at times, but it's fine. It does what it does. It's not great. Doesn't deserve any awards. Doesn't need to be rewatched. I wouldn't recommend it, but you're not going to go wrong with it.
Damning. It's so damning.
I have also been watching the new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm that I have been watching and enjoying.
I've been saving it.
I'm saving it too.
I've been too caught up with the new season of Succession and Below Deck. So, all right. Well, I guess with that, I'll talk to you guys later.
See you.
Cheerio.